All right, we're recording and it is noon on September 21st, 2020. Wow. First day of fall, woo! Of my favorite month of the year, September. I'm feeling very glamorous. Kiddo is with the nanny share. Got the bangs trimmed finally. Got to put on some makeup, feeling really good. Okay, so let's dive into the fall seasonal workshop. All right, so just to give you a little bit of context, well, let's dive into the introduction first. So I'm Laura Bulow. I work with creative mid-career professionals. I most often work with creative entrepreneurs and creative folks who are looking to plan a career transition of some sort. That might be a sabbatical, that might be a transfer and or switch in the company, like what your current position is, and or just incorporating more creativity into your life in general. All right, so that's who I am. Check me out, laurabulow.com. Currently running the September challenge in its first year that I'm just loving, both for myself and connecting with so many awesome individuals who are working on really great things. Okay, and so let's talk about this workshop. Seasonal goal setting workshop, all right? So I've got my notes here. And why are we here? So I'm hosting this workshop because I've never been a New Year's resolution person, and there's just so much failure around goal setting for New Year's resolutions, and it doesn't really set the tone of the year for me personally. So I like to use the seasons. The dates are wildly convenient for preparing yourself for the quarters of the year, and they're conveniently timed as they often fall before major holidays. And that way you can be like, oh, I already did that. I already reviewed my wins, my losses, like what I'm working on, how I care to frame this year by the time the holidays hit. So it's like, you don't need to worry about that because you did it. You checked it off the list. You know how to hit the ground running as soon as the next quarter starts, right? Because you've done it. So I typically like to do these workshops a little bit before this change in the season, but on the day is awesome as well. There's a lot of research that shows that choosing a significant date for whatever you're working on to start something, finish something, whatever, is very powerful and motivating. Most people want to start something on a date that is significant to them versus just choosing some arbitrary date. Okay, so first day of fall, let's create something. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm about to review the agenda, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of context about what I'm going through currently so that you are prepared for like the context and my background as far as like where my seasonal influences are coming. October marks the beginning of my third trimester of pregnancy. You know, a lot of my influences are going to be around like food and heartburn. And, you know, I will bring in some political stuff and values around that. The death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, current race work that I am doing as the white mom of a mixed race child, that sort of thing. Okay, so just so that you've got that and you're prepared for all the things I might dive into. The agenda, what are we going to cover today? I'm just going to run through a bunch of information, and I am going to do my best to complete it within 45 minutes. That's ending around 12:45, so that you all have the information to move forward with a full-blown seasonal quarterly, take you through the rest of 2020 plan. I will be hosting my next seasonal workshop in December to prepare you for the holidays, to get you through that holiday and New Year's transition and be ready to go January 2021. All right? Okay, so I'm going to cover a lot of information. We're going to go through goal exercises, uncovering your why, something that is so often left out of goal setting in general. We'll talk a little bit about happiness research. Again, I'm just going to touch on it. It's too much to go into depth here, but the Happiness Lab is a great way to start framing your goals and building from a place of like, what's actually going to make a difference in my life versus what do I think will make a difference. Then we'll talk about choosing and planning your goal and or project. We'll talk about obstacles, another thing that is often left out of goal planning that is absolutely essential and maybe your key to success in this entire process, okay? Then we're going to talk about your plans moving forward. We'll talk a little bit, you know, we can bring in all the crazy stuff that 2020 has thrown at us. COVID, more race riots in America, the new reality, the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is an election year. Yes. All of those things. Okay, so, and then I'll review my accountability and the work that I do with folks, okay? All right, so then we'll do a little like, congratulations, you set your goal, and off you go. All right, let's just dive right in. I'm gonna get into goal setting right away, right? So and as we get started here, I'm gonna make a special note about habits versus goals, okay? Habits are very much about embracing the process, okay? You know that quote, it's about the journey, it's the journey, not the destination. That's what habits are, right? So really and it's all about like, it's really like the grit and the reality check that we so often receive when pursuing something. We often choose our goals and our projects and our habits based on a particular outcome that we desire. Habits are very much about the process of building anything into your life, okay? So it's breaking things down into their essential elements. And a great way that James Clear of Atomic Habits describes it is that every time you practice a habit, it is a vote for the particular identity that you are seeking to build, okay? Every time you perform a particular action, it reinforces a particular identity. Every time you get on a bike, you are a cyclist, right? Every time you wake up in the morning and take care of your child, you are a parent. Every time you cook at home, you are a cooker, baker, able-bodied person in the kitchen, you know, that sort of thing. Every time you go out for a jog, you are an athlete, you are a runner. Does that all make sense? Okay, great. So now habits can be made automatic and they can be ingrained into your behavioral system, right? Okay, but let's move on. What are goals? Like I said, goals are very often framed, and the word itself is about an end result, right? It's an event, a milestone, something that we want to achieve, right? It's running the marathon, it's biking across the country, it's, you know, it could be an event, right? Like it could be your birthday party or something like that. So it's an end point. It's typically quite fixed. There is, and I think that for my seasonal workshop in the winter, when we switch to winter, I'm gonna create a whole bunch of slides to create a visual diorama of this, because I'm a very visual person. I work with creative people. We love having, like, you know, awesome illustrations of different concepts. So what I want to do is I want to stress the idea that it's a scale, right? Like habits and goals, and you can kind of reverse engineer in either direction, and that there is overlap, obviously, right? So, and it's not a good bad continuum. I really want to stress that we want to eliminate the good bad, like right or wrong approach. It's really about like, what do you want to create? Where are your priorities? What do you want to figure out, right? Like sometimes it's really good to have the goal to kickstart a habit, or sometimes it's really good to have a habit and then use that habit to accomplish a goal, to, again, sort of illustrate and or solidify a particular identity within ourselves. So they're intertwined, they interlap. You can reverse and engineer habits and goals from each other. You know, again, runner versus running a marathon, writer versus writing a book, being an athlete versus doing a specific competition, being an artist versus completing a project or an art piece, being a healthy eater versus having a diet or a weight goal. or doing a cleanse, for example. Again, not a good bad continuum. That's why we need to talk about what we're going to talk about next, your why. Oh, we're not going to talk about that next. Whoops, sorry. Just kidding. We'll get into that in a minute. Okay, so that's an important aspect of this that I will incorporate further and further into all of my workshops, habits versus goals, and how we can how that concept can help us engineer better, more meaningful, effective goals. Okay, so a goal setting technique, AIM and SMART. What is AIM? AIM stands for acceptable, ideal, and the middle path, right? What is the acceptable bare minimum that you could possibly accomplish on whatever it is you desire that would be acceptable to you, okay? Acceptable. What's your ideal? If you were to totally knock this out of the park, blow it up, like really win it, what would that look like? What would your ideal outcome of all of this be? Finally, what's the middle path, right? Where is there sort of this compromise between the two? What do you think is realistic in your ability to accomplish? SMART, most of us have heard of SMART goals. I love meeting people who haven't heard of SMART goals. It feels very refreshing to me. But what does it stand for? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay, so all of those help create a goal. So I believe that there are plenty of gaps in all of these, and you really need a combination of them to create something that's value-based and is going to address where things go wrong, because plans always change, right? So this is one of my new, I just learned about this technique, and it's now like one of my favorites. I find it very relevant. The WHOOP technique stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, plan, okay? What is your wish? What's your desire? Who do you want to be? What do you want to accomplish? What's the outcome of accomplishing that thing, right? This, super important. I even gave it its own section of this workshop. The obstacle. Let's talk about everything that could get in the way of you pursuing that middle path that you've now committed to, right? Like, let's talk about what happens when you're feeling lazy or sad or life gets in the way, which inevitably it will. COVID, for example. Pivot, word of the year. Okay. And then, of course, a plan. Let's incorporate the obstacle into your plan and talk about how to move forward to accomplish your outcome. Okay. Now, let's discuss the seasonal influence, okay? It's fall, such a beautiful season around the world. September, gorgeous month around the world. But I made a note here. WTF is 2020, the beginning of the apocalypse. All right, that's my personal sentiment. A lot of things this year have thrown me through a loop. I'm hearing some really intense and interesting stories from all of you who have participated in the September challenge. So I'm just saying, there's a lot going on, okay? What does fall represent? I did a little bit of research. Mostly I just pull what it means to me, because I think that's more important and more relevant to when you're setting goals. So I encourage you to just brainstorm. What does fall mean to you? What's significant about this time of year? So the fall is about abundance. It's a harvesting season, and it's about transition. All the seasons are about transition, obviously. Fall is like, I feel like fall and spring really solidify and embody like what is transition? What does it look like to go into that transition? We're transitioning out of the heat, right? Like typically temperatures are beginning to subside, a little bit out of the dryness. The daylight hours are rapidly beginning to decline. If you live in a place that is so seasonally blessed, right, it transitions from green to yellow. You're watching plants die, you're watching the leaves change color, and just really seeing the representation of summer like being in full bloom and being like really robust and fully alive to like it's time to hibernate, protect, rest. Okay. We harvest our garden patches. We watch the environment transform and collapse into itself. It's a time that celebrates the summer while welcoming the winter, right? We have already had a few days of snow here in Colorado, some of the earliest in recorded history. And, you know, it was really hard to accept that snow was actually going to come until it showed up. However, it also helped clear the air of the smoke from lots of bad fires in this area. So again, just considering the environment, and it was just a very stark example of like, we need the seasons and the transition and variety in our life. It's important for health, etc. Okay, so it's also, fall is also a time of preparation, right? Collecting, gathering, preparing for the winter time, preparing to restore ourselves, also to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like just sustain energy so that you don't use it all up before the end of the winter, right? We really want to like just hibernate and nest. So think about what it represents to you. Use your five senses, right? Taste. What does it taste like? We've got Halloween coming up. We've got Thanksgiving coming up before the winter, right? The sight, smell, sound, and touch, okay? What sort of religious and spiritual holidays are on the calendar? What religious and spiritual holidays are important to you? What do you believe in? What's important to you? Where are these on the calendar? Mark them. How are they going to play a role in your calendar and how you plan your months? What events are happening? Projects that you have going on at work or in the home? What's something you'd like to put behind you? If this, you know, as we're in a season of transition, like what's something that you could really transition out of and into? What's something you're looking forward to? Happiness research says that having something to look forward to is very important, okay? So there's a lot going on in the world. You know, maybe it's less heat, right? Maybe it's hopefully some rainfall or some snowfall to help control fires in your area. Perhaps it's a particular Supreme Court outcome or a particular election outcome. Maybe it has to do with being around family during the holidays. I don't know, I'm just giving you some ideas. Okay, so I also like to think about, you know, what colors represent this particular season? What sort of movement represents the fall? What sort of seasons and actions are represented during this time? And what would you like to incorporate? What's sort of like the full embodiment of this particular season? I'm also going to comment on this dress. For me, like I love clothes and expression through dress. Trust me, I get very lazy, especially in pregnancy. And then especially with COVID, like I'm totally a sweatpants, like hangout t-shirt kind of person often. But I really like, so I super admire like fashionista, like people who have like, are fearless in their dress, okay? Like that's always what I aspire to. Anyway, I'm pregnant. I have a very limited wardrobe. I received a box from my sister with a whole bunch of maternity clothes. Thank God, hallelujah. And she wore this maternity dress to my younger sister's wedding. And I just think it's so beautiful. And I was very excited to receive it because I was like, oh, cool, like an awesome maternity dress. Few and far between. So here, like, again, I love to comment on my seasonal outfit because I also believe like, okay, seasonal wardrobes, especially here in Denver, I'll say that. So kind of depending on where you live, but again, like, do you care to dress seasonally, right? Are you like a jeans and jackets type of person, or are you like a I live in shorts and t-shirts all the time kind of person? And yeah, so I mean, I both love the palette of this dress. I love that fall offers the variety and like the choice of being like, I'm gonna wear jeans today and it feels awesome. Or like, oh, actually I can still wear shorts and, you know, like a fun tank top or something. So I'm gonna go that route. I'm not a huge fan of like in the winter and feeling like I never warm up and that I need to be completely bundled and that you have to like, you know, just leaving the house becomes this dressing process, right? And then you come home, you have to take it all off and it's all like wet, disgusting. Anyway, so that's another thing to consider. What's your wardrobe? What represents fall? What makes you feel good in that particular season, okay? Now we are jumping into the why. Let's take a drink of water. Like I said, I'm speeding through this. Time is precious, right? And I know that it would be useful for everyone to have more time to sort of consider all of these aspects rather than just listen to me talk about it. So let's dive into the why, okay? Basically, the take-home message here is figure out what your why is for your goal and or project. Question it, but just get to the bottom of like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Like, what is this thing that you want? Why do you want that? Like, what is it truly about, okay? You want to be in alignment and integrity, and you really want to be your most authentic self when setting these things and defining them, okay? I even wrote down the definition of integrity here because I think it's so important for us to revisit the definition of words and make them our own, but really just understand where it is that we're coming from and what kind of language we can use to best support ourselves. So integrity is the quality of being honest, the quality of being whole and undivided, right? If you approached something honestly and you were whole and undivided in your commitment, could you fail, really? Could you fail? What would that look like? What does that mean? And then what does authentic mean? What I have here is genuine, right? Authentic is being genuine, being really real about what your goals are. So there's a couple of resources I hear that I have for you. Simon Sinek is amazing. Watch his Why TED Talk. He is awesome, super hot, sexy nerd time. Like, go watch his Start With Why TED Talk. It really gets into why understanding your own motivations is so important and how you can get there, okay? Another tool is the 5 why exercise, which is just like, it's best if you're writing it out, but basically like just ask yourself why 5 times or talk it out loud, right? You can do this with a partner or by yourself, but just ask, say why to get down to those deeper levels that aren't quite as surface, right? Okay, so those are 2, Simon Sinek's TED Talk and the 5 whys. I have a little note on Oprah here as far as like just being in alignment with your intentions, the essence of everything, whatever your goal is, right? Set your intention. I can, I will, watch me, okay? And when we make these kinds of commitments to ourselves, there's also a boost in happiness, right? In purpose and meaning. Okay, which gets us into the happiness research that I will briefly cover here. I just have a few bullet points, all right? So our brains are terrible at predicting what will actually make us happy. Surprise, surprise. All right, so we're not good at predicting in the future what will actually make us happy. So it's best to look to the research if you care about these things and if you consider the fact that projects, goals, the things you're pursuing, in theory, those 5 whys will take you down to like purpose, meaning, happiness, right? We're pleasure-driven animals, basically. So Laurie Santos is a professor at Yale. She has a free course on happiness. She's also the creator of the Happiness Lab podcast, which I highly recommend listening to. So here's a small list of things that do not make us happy that we often believe do. Money is very high on that list. People pursue money all the time. External measures of success, which also include money. It may be grades, certain accolades, awards, certificates, that kind of thing. Which leads us to the next one, which is stuff, right? Materialism does not make us happy. It often has the opposite effect. And the grass is always greener thinking. These are all like pretty detrimental to our happiness oftentimes because again, the lack of good predictions in our brain make it harder for us to handle those things once they arrive and that we're not getting the happiness and the satisfaction that we perhaps expected and desired from them. So what actually makes us happy? There is a great Harvard study TED Talk one of the longest standing ever, on that follows like a whole bunch of white men. But it talks about what makes us happy, truly happy in life. So relationships, meaningful relationships, exercising is, there's lots of research that says that regular exercise is as effective as antidepressant medication. Okay, that's a big one. Connecting to a purpose, a gratitude practice, which is quite popular these days, right? So you can do some easy Google searches on how to increase your gratitude. Acting in service, this is another big one. Practicing being present in the moment makes us very happy. Accomplishment in alignment with your own values, right? So certain accolades or awards that are really in alignment with your values and what your true mission is, if you understand your why, it's very powerful. And then this one I love because it's a small thing and that you wouldn't guess, and you actually, oftentimes we try and do the opposite, but it's really proven to boost your happiness in like immediately, which is talking to strangers and acquaintances. So talking to the grocery store clerk, saying hi to a neighbor, exchanging a few sentences with someone at the store or in the park. So, you know, a lot of times we kind of like pop in the headphones, got the phone up, like, and avoid those little casual moments of interaction. But the happiness research says that those kinds of interactions are scientifically proven to boost your happiness like immediately. So just think about that, because I know that walking around my neighborhood, and especially with COVID, this has really struck home in the sense, like, sometimes you just need to get out of that like daily routine and you just need a different perspective. And oftentimes when we are speaking to people we don't know that well, we're putting our best selves forward, right? We're being polite, we're being kind and generous, and even if it's just for a short moment. So we put on a happy face and say, hey, how are you? What's happening? And that can kind of trick you into like being a little bit happier, being like, oh yeah, like life isn't so bad. Like I can be of service and help others feel good just by acknowledging them and saying hello. So that's a great one. All right, so these are all excellent ways to think about editing your goals, reconsidering where your priorities are over the next quarter, okay? Which brings me to choosing and planning for your goal. If you don't have a goal or a habit or project that you'd like to use already, I have some resources to help you pick. These are some of my favorite resources in the world. So my recommendation to you is that you choose 1 to 2 habits or goals for personal and for work, not more. All right? It's hard. That's the whole point. The other thing is the reality of the situation. We have limited time, we have limited resources, and if you have more than 1 to 2 per aspect of your life, right, like in the personal side or the work side, it's unlikely that you will be successful. And the point of that I like to drive home with my clients is that success fuels success, right? Celebrating even small wins motivates you to keep going, and makes that like that success stimulation appealing to you. So it makes you want to challenge yourself, but you don't want to overstep. So, and if you just fail, then there's this like, it just flattens the process, right? So set yourself up for success. The more focused you are, the more likely you are to be successful. Okay, so what are my resources for helping you choose a goal? The first one is the Passion Planner Roadmap. I love the Passion Planner. Over the last couple of years, I've strayed. Big mistake. I started using other planners. I'm notebook obsessed. I'm planner obsessed. So I was like branching out and trying to see like, well, what is the best planner? What works best for me? What do I really want? And this year I really decided like, you know what I want is to go back to the Passion Planner. So I have, or I will, I'm going to start experimenting with their daily planner, which is new. They didn't have a daily before. They just released a Passion Planner daily. I will start using that October through December to see how that goes. And then in 2021, I am going to use my Passion Planner weekly, which I'm very excited about. Okay, but so they have a ton of free resources. This is another reason I love them, on their website, passionplanner.com. I have a referral code if you'd like to use it for a mini discount. Please just email me, direct message me, whatever. It is an amazing tool for brainstorming and exploring the different aspects of your life of what you would potentially like to pursue, and then how you can choose what would be the most effective thing for you to work on in this point in time. Okay, so that's one. That's a free resource, Passion Planner. Okay, Passion Planner. You go, you download the Passion Planner roadmap. I just encourage you to take the time and do that exercise. And then the next resource, Odyssey Plan. Okay, Odyssey planning, design your life. Google designing your life, Odyssey Plan. You can find different versions of their little like diagrams. And I walk people through these exercises as well. If you'd like to set up an individual session and or a group session to be facilitated so that you have set aside time and with a facilitator to really guide you through the process, that's the work I love doing. It's so fun. It's a great way to get to know yourself and your friends better. Let me know if you're interested. Okay, so the Odyssey plans, here's an additional little trick that I really like using because this year has been so crazy. The Odyssey plans are big little pictures, right? Like it's creating this 5-year plan in a specific way. 5 years, like what does that mean anymore, right? Like this whole, I feel like 2020 just really highlighted to everyone, like you don't have control, and you know, make all the plans that you want. And again, plans always change. So what I started doing and incorporating into my sessions was this idea of like, sure, like let's think big, right? Like where do we want to be in 5 years? Let's not lose sight of that, because it can be a beacon of hope. It can be something to look forward to. It can really help steer the ship in the right direction. However, I would encourage you, the deal with Odyssey plans is you do 3. It's best to do 3, right? 3 5-year plans. Again, do the research, do the exercise. It's very helpful. If 5 years is just like unfathomable to you for any number of reasons, I came up with the COVID Odyssey plan. Instead of 5 years, it's just 5 months. It's a 5-month plan. You can create 3 5-year plans. Then you can create 3 5-month plans, depending on what the hell is happening in the world and in your life, right? Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you get COVID. Maybe, like, I don't know, maybe you're traveling and had to go home. Maybe all of a sudden all of your plans are canceled, you're not going anywhere, right? Like there's just a million different variations there. So use that, right? Make it work for you. Okay, let's get into obstacles. Very important. Episode 7 of the Happiness Lab goes into describing the WHOOP model for goal setting, okay? And this is where I want to talk about the big O, the second O, obstacles, another often left out thing of goal setting. So they also talk about, in this episode, they also define like what is positive and negative thinking. Positive thinking is what we all know, love and hate it to be, which is positive affirmations, right? The beautiful stuff, focusing on the positive, training your brain to see like the good of everything, right? Negative thinking, I don't really like the term because it's not exactly the opposite. It's not just like being a doom and gloom type of person or total pessimist. The idea is that it's a thinking ahead and being able to plan for different outcomes and things that could potentially go wrong in your plan. All right. So as you, again, life happens, you break a leg, whatever, you get COVID, how are you going to incorporate that into your plan? Does it derail everything that you've decided that you want to work on? Or is there a way to make it blend and accomplish, continue working towards the outcome that you desire regardless? So this is your secret weapon. If you have a when shit hits the fan plan, you're much more likely to be resilient and committed to returning to your goal, even when you fall off the wagon, because you've been able to simulate the situation in your mind. Okay, again, episode 7 is incredible. There's a great story about Michael Phelps that really illustrates this entire concept. I really recommend listening to the episode, and I really, really recommend taking the time to brainstorm what could derail your goal and how you're going to deal with it when you do, right? Like, I'm leading the September challenge right now. I'm just going to take a moment to speak about this. And half the people are doing great on their daily habit, and half the people are not doing so well. They all have reasonable excuses. What I'm trying to accomplish and illustrate and be a part of is helping people see where they could grow and learn, and to support them in saying, you haven't failed. Let's get back on the horse. What's the edit, the pivot that we need to make to turn this back into a success? Just because you failed one day, 1 week, doesn't mean the entire month is a wash, right? If your original goal was to do the daily habit of 15 minutes of meditation every day, that's a pretty big goal if you're going from 0 to 15 minutes. I know that as a mom of a 15-month-old, 15 minutes is not realistic for me. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I chose 2 minutes of meditation, right? Like, if you can accomplish your goal within 2 minutes, then it's very unlikely, that you can't squeeze it in somewhere. Like, the reason I chose the 2-minute meditation is because I can always squeeze that in before bed if I want. I can count in my head. I can turn on the app. Sometimes it'll put me to sleep. Sometimes it won't, but it just gives me that, like, oh, okay, I did it. And if I want to meditate more than 2 minutes, great. But if I don't, or if I fall asleep, then that's fine. I can check it off my list. So again, just considering where your limits are, being realistic, and being like, if I can't do 2 minutes, then this isn't realistic. And again, how can I edit to continue forward? So that's kind of what negative thinking is about. The obstacle, that is your key to success. Okay, being aware of that. Let's talk about moving forward. So if you're taking the time to go through all these exercises, then you have uncovered your deeply moving why, right? You've explored and dissected everything that could possibly go wrong, and you've really gotten curious about the ins and outs of your goal. So it's time to make a plan, and the final step is putting everything into your calendar, okay? Remember, we're going to be starting the 4th quarter of the year. And you can kind of look at it as like this 90 to 100-day project. The less goals that you have, the more likely your success, okay? So hopefully you've used the AIM process to sort of figure out what would be reasonable and realistic for you to achieve during this time. Now, a brief note on COVID, the race situation in America, and the apocalypse. I just want to say, like, I understand that these things are too deep for me to cover in the seasonal goal workshop, and they're also too deep for me to cover as a white woman who has a 15-month-old. So I come to these things like from a place of humility and wanting to be open and wanting to learn. I do offer one-on-one sessions where we can dig into any of these issues much more deeply and use them to guide your goal setting, okay? So I would really encourage you to think about how all of these things have shaped your life, have changed your life. Has it influenced your values? Like, in what ways is it making you think and consider the next 5 months to 5 years of your life? You know, what has it taught you about yourself? What has it taught you about the world, about politics? There's just so much happening. Like, you know, are you incorporating political or racial education into your life? And what does that look like? The September Challenge has intentionally incorporated a weekly community action, again, to lower the barrier to entry and recognize the different forms of activism that we have accessible to us 24 hours a day, all the time. And not turning it into this big thing, like I have to go volunteer and like get out the vote. Like what other, you know, which is beautiful, and I highly encourage people to do that. But also that, you know, a lot of people, they're not willing or unable to do that currently. So, you know, what are other ways we can contribute? Well, you know, financial is always huge, but like, again, what other ways can I contribute? You know, like when I ride my bike or pick up trash, like that is also a form of activism. If I choose to recycle in my city, that is also activism. So just really to consider the multifaceted ways we can be involved and what sort of small tweaks can we make in our lives to make it easy. Simple and easy is sustainable, and we want to incorporate as much of the simple and easy things so that when it comes to doing the hard things, not everything falls apart, okay? This is the work that I do. I help you set deadlines. I check in with you. We build out a calendar. I am a professional accountability buddy. You know, my whole thing is like, let's be of integrity. Let's live our lives with integrity. And that's what I help other people do as well. So I also help you celebrate your success. Okay, there's so often we do not do that. And it's a real shame, because now we need to celebrate more than ever when small things go right. So that's me. I work as a guide, a trusted advisor, and a sounding board. So that's how I look out for my clients. I help you clarify things, your processes, your values, and we create a path moving forward. We're always working on, you know, let's answer this question of what's next, and moving forward intentionally. All right, so the next workshop, as I mentioned, will be in December. Get on my emailing list for the announcement for that, for the winter seasonal goal setting workshop. My email, laura@laurabulow.com, www.laurabulow.com. You can schedule free sessions with me. Congratulations on setting your seasonal goal. I really hope that you learned something today and were able to incorporate meaningful action into your goal setting process. All right, so get out there and slay. I love receiving questions. Please email me, text me, call me, whatever. I have available resources. If you'd like the resource list, please contact me. And that is all we have for the seasonal goal setting workshop this fall, ending right on time, very punctual. That's a big deal for me. All right, so keep it real. Please contact me. Keep your eyes open for the next seasonal workshop, and stay safe, stay healthy. All right, bye.